Young people are endorsing President Ruto for 2027. In fact, in droves. You know, there was agitation last year and this year. But when you look at what is happening currently, is that the narrative is changing and President Ruto's popularity is gaining momentum across the country. Yes, you understand what I mean by President Ruto's popularity gaining momentum. It means President Ruto is getting that acceptance across the country. President Ruto had lost legitimacy to some extent, especially when you consider last year. You remember the protests that happened last year, also this year. But with all that, you understand what really happened, because we had President Ruto, closing ranks with Raila and starting to work together. From there, broad-based government was formed. Since then, you're seeing the narrative changing. You're seeing President Ruto being accepted across the country. So young people who had big issues with President Ruto, what are they saying right now? They're changing their anger to looking at life from this positive lens, because they are like, okay, Kenya is still a great country. Okay, we say we have bad leaders, but we are the people who elected these leaders. And President Ruto also understands the challenges we are facing as people. So should we continue with the protests, or what exactly should we do? And also because there's too much pressure on young people. People want to survive. And also when they look at it this way, tukae kwa streets ama tukae chini na serikali yetu na tujue tutafanya lipi ili tubadilishe maisha. So when they look at life that way, from there they start thinking about, opportunities available online, or what can we do to make a living? Because they also look at what is happening in America, where, the American government under Donald Trump, does not want Kenyans to go there, not necessarily Kenyans, but Africans. Western society, they're focusing on immigration, where they don't want people from third world countries. They consider African countries, third world. So they don't want us to go there. So because of that, young people are seeing that instead of them blaming their governments all the time, they should find a way, to work hard in their own country and support policies that can benefit them. Look at Nyota. This is a project that is government driven or state-led, and President Ruto is making sure that young people at least have something to benefit from his government. And as I mentioned in the previous video, beneficiary politics definitely change people's perception. So when these young people benefit from President Ruto's government, they definitely see him as a better choice here. Yes, there's anger, there's frustration, and also people remember what happened, during protests where young people were maimed and all that. But President Ruto has a compensation program, and Kenya is on a healing path. So when we take this path of healing, there's always forgiveness. We start to forgive and find a way where we can become more united, we can become more peaceful, and we can coexist. So that is what young people are pursuing. And also President Ruto is pushing a narrative that makes young people, say, wait a minute, what is President Ruto talking about? President Ruto is talking about transforming Kenya and making it first world. So that kind of narrative changes people's perceptions towards President Ruto. And it augurs so well with young people. Yes, young people are saying it is possible for Kenya to transform, and they want to see this happening in their lifetime. So if that's the case, what do we have to do? Should we protest? Should we direct our anger at President Ruto? No, we should focus on how we can develop. So that is the transformation that is happening. And President Ruto, as I mentioned previously, is good at building narratives that favor him politically. So this first world narrative, or this Singaporean dream, it is a narrative that definitely favors young people. So if young people look at Kenya having these highways, more energy, industrializing, they'll see Kenya as this better country. In fact, people would even say Kenya is better than the United States. People would even say we don't have to be out of Kenya to succeed. We can still make it here in Kenya. So because of that, President Ruto's popularity shoots up. because people are now seeing him as a better option. People are now seeing him pushing an agenda that will transform Kenya. So the anger that was there, definitely it has to disappear. Additionally, President Ruto is using this strategy, co-opting these young people, that bring these young people, especially those who are influential, into government. Look at what is happening to Kasmuel. Right now, he's talking about President Ruto being re-elected. He is happy that President Ruto is becoming this transformational leader. So when we have that kind of conversation, you will find that young people will see President Ruto as a better option than Kalonzo. So President Ruto, as I mentioned, is so strategic. He understands what kind of narrative can augur so well with the young people. And definitely, first world narrative works so well for young people. And because of that, moving forward, these young people that you see will vote for President Ruto, despite the anger they had some time back. And also remember this, anger is just a feeling. So with the time, this anger vanishes. When anger disappears, we can rationalize, we can have healthy conversations. And as you can see right now, the conversations that are being pushed are healthy. You know, first world. Do you hear one term? I mean, that is disappearing. So opposition is now struggling. What other narrative can we push that can, you know, attract these young people? But for President Ruto's side, they've worked so well on their strategy. They've worked on, you know, a psychological strategy that can win the hearts of these young people. And that's why young people are not seeing President Ruto as this villain. Instead, they are seeing President Ruto as a transformational leader. So right now, they don't have much, you know, issues with President Ruto's government. Instead, they're waiting for 2027 where they can make their voice heard. And in this situation, they're likely to elect President Ruto, unless the united opposition does something that is so unique that will make President Ruto look like this villain. Otherwise, as things are, young people are becoming more comfortable with President Ruto. And that's why atrocities or those other mistakes that were made some time back, they're being put aside, and now we are looking at what can heal us and what can unite us and what can we do to move our country forward. And definitely it is this first world narrative President Ruto is talking about. Also, President Ruto is making it clear that we have a huge public debt, so we have to have national infrastructure fund, we have to have sovereign wealth fund, and young people want such kind of conversations. These young people are educated, so when they hear President Ruto talk about this agenda or talk about these initiatives, they can see these initiatives as things that will benefit them, not just today, but also tomorrow. So what do you think about the Gen Z? Do you think they're losing focus and they're being co-opted into President Ruto's side so easily? That's a conversation we can have in the comment section. I want to hear from you. What do you think? Is President Ruto winning the Gen Z hearts? And do you think his popularity will be maintained until 2027? Let's have that conversation. Always keep it here on Owen Raw Podcast.